wokeism, or however you want to define it, political correctness in the past. Not popular, never been popular with Republicans, but also not popular with a lot of Democrats. I do wonder, though, if the word's just been used so much that it now ceases to have any real meaning attached to it.
Yeah, it's an interesting question we have from our NBC poll. Again, we took over the last week or so. New questions here we can show you that really get to this question of social change in the country, some attitudes on cultural issues. And I think what emerges is a picture of a country, obviously, that's divided in many ways. That's no surprise. But also, I think it gets to what you're saying, Joe. Different terms can mean different things to different people simultaneously. And let me show you what I mean by that. I'll take you through some of these numbers here. Ask a very basic question here. We asked, do you think American society is racist?
I don't think society as a whole are racist, but they've been convinced that American society is racist through the media and through social media.
Spread in our poll agreement that it is nearly 60%, 59% saying yes. And if you take a look here and just break this down by race, there is a majority. It's a smaller majority, but a majority of white Americans feel that way, and then larger majorities of African Americans and Hispanics.
So a poll came out from NBC, widespread agreement that American society is racist. Now, I believe racism still exists. I know it still exists because as long as there are human beings on this earth, there's going to be racism, there's going to be slavery, there's going to be discrimination, there's going to be all kind of evil things because the heart of man is evil, as it says in Jeremiah 17. Now, do I believe that American society as a whole is racist? No, like it used to be. No, I don't believe that. I believe there's pockets of racism, in particular in the Democratic Party, in particular in some elements of the Republican Party, and especially in the media.
Feel the same way too. So on the question of is America racist, you're getting at nearly 60% of the country saying yes. Okay, so what do you do about that? One of the solutions that's been in place now for decades in this country has been affirmative action programs. So what we asked is,
I don't believe in affirmative action, but I do believe in taking steps to build up equality when it comes to minorities, in particular Black Americans. If you listen to Thomas Sowell, he gave a very eloquent argument describing why affirmative action does not help Black students in this particular case.
This means that he would permit and would actively permit active recruitment of qualified minorities, among other things. The alternative, as you know, is some form of mandatory proportional representation for minorities, or quotas, to put it in one word. Now, do you believe that mandatory proportional representation benefits minorities?
No. In fact, I think one of the great handicaps that blacks and other minorities face across the country is that they are systematically mismatched with universities in the admissions process. That is, if Harvard feels that it must have X% of blacks, and if the pool is such that they can't get X% of blacks at the same level as the rest of the Harvard students, they're going to take those blacks who would have succeeded in some state university and bring them to Harvard, where many of them will fail. Or MIT is a better example, that the average black student at MIT is in the bottom 10% of MIT students in math. But he is in the top 90% of all American students in math, because MIT students are so phenomenal in mathematics. Something like 1/4 of all the black students going to MIT do not graduate. You're talking about a pool of people who score at the 90th percentile in math, whom you are artificially turning into failures by mismatching them with the school. Back in much earlier, you had a great increase of blacks in the universities through the GI Bill. You had nothing like that kind of attrition from that process, because the student went wherever he could be accepted, wherever he met the normal standards, and the government simply paid the money.
I don't believe in affirmative action because I don't believe in artificial quotas. I don't believe in doing things that are not organic, because it will not last, because you're not getting to the root of the issue. I believe that black children and black people in general have the agency, have the intelligence to achieve at the same level or higher as any other ethnic group. I don't think there's a difference in intelligence just because somebody's skin is a little bit darker than somebody else's. I believe there's a difference in preparation, there's a difference in dedication, and there's a difference in application of teaching our children how to learn. That's why, I don't always agree with Dr. Umar Johnson, but he made a point this past weekend when he was talking to a group about how black churches, but for me, churches in general, but in particular, black churches spend more time educating children in the black community.
Every church should have two things. Every church should have a credit union to finance black businesses, and every church should have a school to educate our children. If you don't have one or the other, you need to be shut down yesterday.
It is because, by and large, the black community has outsourced the task of educating our children over to people that do not want to educate them. They've outsourced this task. And what you get black children that are learning at a lower level than their peers. That is intentional because they want to do that. If they dumb down the populace, then they can stay in power. They can stay in control. Then they can turn around and tell you, oh, it's systemic racism. Oh, it's because the white man. It's white supremacy. It's white privilege. It's why you're not achieving. No, it is your policies that are intent on keeping us under bondage and keeping black children under bondage. And when you speak out about it, then they label you an Uncle Tom, a coon, and those kind of things. But no, I'm just exposing the agenda that is meant to keep certain people in their place. It's always been like that. It's always been like that. Now it's just more camouflage and now it's just more covert. Back in the day, it was just overt. They would simply tell you that black children should not learn with white children. They would openly do that. The racist policies were seen. And you know what? A funny thing about that, during those times, black children excelled in academics. Black children excelled in intelligence. There was so much creativity in the black community because we had to band together. But now, we don't have that. Why? Because, like I said, parents and the community at large has outsourced its responsibility to educate and bring up the younger generation to government schools, indoctrination camps. Very similar to how in the Bible, in the Old Testament, the children of Israel began to outsource their responsibility of teaching their children about the law, teaching their children about the Torah. And you know what happened? They forgot about God, and it led to their destruction. And the same thing is happening to America.
Paul was asked a question, basically giving people two choices here. Affirmative action. Is it still needed and is it still a good idea as long as there are no rigid quotas? That's what we asked in this poll. And a majority, 53%, agreed with that. The other option that we gave was that affirmative action goes too far. It should be ended because it discriminates against whites and Asian Americans. 42% agreed with that statement. If you want to break that down by party, you can see Democrats overwhelmingly say they're fine with affirmative action. Republicans overwhelmingly say they're opposed. And it's the independents. It's that independent vote there, that independent slice of the opinion that kind of makes the difference and that kind of is in line with the overall number. I would say one interesting note on this. Well, you can see this in our poll when we ask it this way. There was one big ballot test for affirmative action in the last couple of years, and it came in a big and deeply blue state, and that was California. And California, by initiative about a generation ago, had banned public sector affirmative action. Well, 2 years ago, supporters of affirmative action put it on the ballot in California, same day Joe Biden romped in the state to restore affirmative action in the public sector in California. It went down to defeat. That proposition went down to defeat by 16 points in California. So,
see? And that's a prime example right there. These same people who on the surface preach about equity. Oh, we want equity, 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 equity. But in California, a predominantly democratically controlled state where there's no excuse, you can't blame white supremacy, you can't blame racist MAGA Republicans when it comes to this affirmative action ballot measure being rejected. It was rejected. That goes to show you that people may say something with their mouths, but in their hearts and their minds, they believe something totally different. They don't want it because they have no desire to see the community advance. They have no desire to do that. So they have virtue signaling. That's what they do. They virtue signal, but in all actuality, they do not want the community to achieve because it makes them look better. When the community is struggling, they can come in and have that hero, that savior complex.
While you are seeing double-digit support here for the concept of affirmative action as we outline it in this poll, you have to keep in mind what happened in a very, very big blue state when affirmative action was on the ballot in 2020. That's what I mean about maybe some mixed signals. Here's also what we talk about with mixed signals. Now, are you familiar with the term woke? 3/4 of Americans say they are familiar with the term woke. Okay, what does it mean to you, those who are familiar with it? Does it make you more or less favorably inclined?
So I made a video in detail talking about what is woke. There have been many definitions that have been given by a myriad of people. And I tried to sum it up succinctly by saying anything that's anti-God, anti-American, anti-human. It's the normalization of behavior that is destructive to a society and to a person. That's what woke means to me. That's how I define woke. I think it is an overused term. It's a blanketed term that people use for the wrong reasons. I don't like when people use woke to describe things that are culturally relevant. And I mentioned that in that video. That's not wokeness. No, it's not. So I don't like when people do that. But in the terms of this discussion, when it comes to what he's going to talk about next, it does apply.
Inclined to someone or something who's identified as woke, and by about a 2-to-1 margin, people it has a negative connotation. The term has a negative connotation. You look across party lines here. Among Democrats, it's more positive. Among Republicans, it's deeply unpopular. But there it is. It's among independents. The word woke has a very negative connotation with Republican voters. And then when I say different things can mean different things to different people at the same time, here's what I mean. We ran a number of statements by people and asked basically, does this describe your view? So we asked folks, the statement, our country needs to do more to increase social justice. 70% said they agreed with that. 7 out of 10.
Because when you ask that question, on the surface, that's a question that people would answer in the affirmative because people want to see justice done socially. They want to see things done in a manner that gives everyone the ability to succeed. No one wants to see injustice, but that term is misleading. That social justice is really a progressive Marxist term for equity, for stripping the rights of one person and giving it to somebody else. It's for remaking and reshaping society. That's what social justice means to them.
10, pretty big support there. Our country needs to reduce political correctness and cancel culture. Not quite 70%, but basically 2/3 also agree with that. Or if you look at it this way, our country should be more tolerant of the LGBTQ community. 61% say they agree with that. Put it this way, if you ask it this way, we have gone too far in promoting LGBTQ lifestyles in our culture. Almost the same number.
See, that shows you. When you get down to the root of it, America is a center-right nation. America was founded on biblical principles. I don't agree that America was a Christian nation. I don't agree with that. I agree America was founded on biblical principles. That people want a traditional structure in America because they understand that's how America and that's how human beings and that's how the world will flourish. When you have the natural biblical order in place. So when you ask people these questions, you really get to the root that they don't agree with all these things that are being pushed on them by the quote unquote woke agenda in Hollywood and in the media and some of these politicians. They don't agree with it because they know it's not beneficial to them or to society, but they will not say it publicly because they don't want to be castrated by their social club.
Nearly 60% say yes. So when you look at the contours of our political debate and how the two parties are kind of aligning themselves in these questions, a lot of these statements you might think would be in opposition to each other and would polarize, and yet you run these statements, all 4 of these statements by people, and you're finding big majority support for it. So like I say, there is a lot of measures of divisiveness that comes through on social and cultural issues in this poll, but I think there's also a lot of sort of interpretive room here when you start to look at it.
And so, yes, America has pockets of racism. And America will continue to have pockets of racism because you have people that believe the dumbest things, the most ignorant things, that based upon the skin tone that they're better than somebody else. They haven't read Acts 17:26 if they're Christians. They don't understand that you come from one blood, just one race. We have different ethnicities, but there's one race of people, one human race. They don't understand that. And so they think that just because their dad or mom told them they're better because of their ethnicity, that's not right. You're going to have ignorant people. People are going to be ignorant regardless. But the society as a whole in America, no, it's not racist. Look at the increase of interracial couples. I mean, you can't turn on the TV without seeing a commercial with a black man and a white woman. You can't. Now, some people really get upset about that, but I'm just being real about it. Turn the TV on and watch the NBA playoffs or watch whatever your favorite show is and count the number of commercials where you see a black man and a white woman in a commercial. So, no, society as a whole is not racist. And I don't believe we still need affirmative action. What we need is action in the affirmative to elevate the opportunities for children and for people of color. And I'm not saying that the government needs to do that. I think we need to bandy together, citizens of these United States of America, and work together and have nonprofits and have churches and have, if you're going to use the government, have state governments come up with programs that are beneficial to the community, meaning the government gets out of the way, the government puts money back into the community and does not have any strings attached. The government gets out of the way of the community. The government allows the community to have their own agency and they figure it out for themselves. That was the American way based on meritocracy, not this socialist, Marxist, communist garbage that they've been trying to push down our throats for the last 40, 50, 60, almost 100 some odd years. This artificial equity they're trying to push, this artificial leveling off of society. It will never work. It will never work. Because we're not victims, we are empowered for greatness. So the government needs to get out of our way and let the greatness inside of us shine forth.